Good afternoon. My name is Jack Whitfer. I am a state senator from Ankeny. I'm also the state chair for the Marco Rubio campaign here in Iowa. And I want to thank you for coming out today to be a part of this town hall forum, to hear Marco's vision for a new American century, and get a chance to ask whatever questions you need answered before you're ready to go caucus just 27 days from today on February 1st. You know, as Iowans, we have a unique opportunity and a huge responsibility to pick the next president of the United States. And we don't get the final say, but we get the first say. And 27 days from now, we're going to put forward our nominee, who we think would be the best choice as Republicans. And I think it is important, it is extremely important that as Republicans, we select someone that can unify our party, that can bring all the different factions of our party together. Because we can beat Hillary Clinton, and we will beat Hillary Clinton if we are united as Republicans. But how are we going to beat Hillary Clinton if we can't even unify ourselves? How are we going to beat her if we are dividing Republicans against Republicans? When this race started, I thought there were 2 or 3 people that could unify the entire party going into the general election. The other ones have dropped out, and I believe there's only one person left on stage that can unify our party, and that's Marco Rubio. And as we move forward in this race, I think it is important to know that we can have it all this year. You know, in the past, they've given us this bad choice between you can have the moderate that they say they can win, or the true conservative that everyone says can't win. But this year we can have it all. We can have someone that has a true conservative record, a proven conservative record in Marco Rubio. Someone who is the best and most articulate messenger of the conservative movement. And let me tell you why that's important. That's important because if we're ever going to win another national election, we need somebody that can talk to the American people. Because I honestly believe the American people are on our side. But we have not done a good enough job the last 2 elections messaging to them. There is no better messenger for our movement than Marco Rubio. We can have someone this year that is not afraid to take on the establishment. In 2010, when Marco was going to run for the U.S. Senate, the Florida establishment told him, no, it's not your turn, you're not our guy. The D.C. establishment said, you're not our choice, we have Charlie Crist, the governor. Well, Marco knew he was not a true conservative, and so Marco ran anyway. And not only did he beat Charlie Crist, but Charlie Crist is now a Democrat because Marco beat him so bad. Now, at the end of this event, we're going to ask you to commit to caucus for Marco. And we hope we have earned that support by the time this is over. And all we're asking you to do is to fill out a commit to caucus card saying you will agree that you'll go to the caucus on February 1st, show up at the school or the church near your home, and write down Marco Rubio on that piece of paper. That's all we're asking you to commit to. And we're asking you to fill out a form with our staff in the back so that we can remind you what day, what time, what location your caucus is held, so that we can make sure that you come out February 1st. And so we want you to be a part of our team. You know, for the last 6 years, people have been saying Marco Rubio is the future of the Republican Party. I agree with them. I think that future is now. Please help welcome him to Mason City, Marco Rubio.
The rural power folks are here with so you guys gave me one of those shirts a couple weeks ago. You don't remember. I wore it at the gym the other morning in New Hampshire, and somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, are you from Iowa?" I said, "Kind of nowadays, yes, yeah." So it's interesting. So thank you very much for having me here. I'm really grateful. It's great to be here. This is gorgeous architecture, great building, a lot of history. My understanding, if I'm wrong, correct me, as I came on the stage, there was a famous bank heist here, not a long time ago. Dillinger, I guess, robbed the bank right across the street, just like Washington. So we're in perfect shape here. We're in good company. Thank you for coming. My goal here today, if you are already a supporter of our campaign, I thank you for your help. And our goal here today is to continue to motivate you to go out and find new people. But I know that as the first caucus in the country, the first voters in America that pronounce themselves on this race, you take very seriously this decision you're about to make. And so if perhaps you're still undecided, or if perhaps you've narrowed it down to 4 people, 5 people, I love when you tell me that. I've narrowed it down to 5. We're getting closer. And my hope is that I can convince you to narrow it down to 1 here today by talking to you and to get you to caucus for us. And if in fact you are committed to fill out those forms so we can stay in touch with you between now and 26 days, 27 days from now when the time comes to put pen to paper, pencil to paper, and pronounce ourselves in this election. It's an important election. They all are. This one is really unique because at stake is our very identity as a nation. It is the greatest country in the history of the world. And a lot of people love to say that, but it's important to remind ourselves of why we're the greatest country in the history of the world. It began at our founding. We were founded on this very unique and powerful principle that the rights we have, chiefly life, liberty, and pursuit happiness, that those rights do not come from the government. They come from our Creator. They come from God. And that is a very unique principle, because most nations on earth believe your rights come from government. It's whatever your leaders allow you to have, not in America. Here, we believe our rights come from our Creator. That's why we embraced free enterprise. It was the only economic model in the world where you are judged on how hard you're willing to work and what merit you have. And it made us the most prosperous people in history. This is why we embraced individual liberty, because we believe that a free people, given the opportunity, can achieve extraordinary things. And the result is the amazing story of America, the most exceptional nation in all of human history. Now, as I run for president, and I travel the country, here in Iowa and other places, one of the things I'm starting to hear a lot over the last year is, I don't recognize my own country anymore. I sometimes feel like this is not the America I grew up in, and it's headed in a direction I don't recognize anymore. Or I hear people say, I feel like I'm being left behind. Sometimes I hear people say, I feel out of place in my own country. And we have to ask ourselves, why is this happening? And there are a lot of different answers, but the one I want to focus on today is the one that happened 7 years ago. And that is the United States of America, elected as president, a man, Barack Obama, who was not interested in simply fixing the problems we have in America. He was deeply committed to changing America, to fundamentally transforming America, our relationship with government, our role in the world. And he has spent 7 years carrying that out. So today we have a president that does not believe in the free enterprise system, at least not the way I do, and probably you do. He believes the free enterprise system is flawed, that only a handful of people make all the money, and everyone else is left behind, and the only way a business can be successful is if they exploit their workers or exploit their customers. He believes the Constitution is an outdated document, one that you were supposed to work to get around or manipulate to reach the policy outcomes you want. And so you see this relentless focus on undermining the Constitution. Just today, issuing an executive order that undermines the Second Amendment. And by the way, outrage of outrage. They've assigned over 400 agents now to enforce this new executive order. That's more people than what they've put in that special force that's designed to go after ISIS. So they're dedicating more people to undermine the Second Amendment than they are to undermine the most powerful and dangerous terrorist group perhaps in the history of the world. You have a president, quite frankly, that looks with great suspicion at Americans that hold traditional values. And that's why today in America, if you are pro-life, you are accused of waging a war on women. If you believe in traditional marriage, they say you're a bigot or a hater. And you have a president that doesn't see America as a great power. He sees America as an arrogant global power, a nation that needs to be humbled, a nation that needs to atone for its past. And that's how you get a foreign policy in which we betray our allies, we cut deals with our enemies, we are gutting our military, and on top of all these things, he has gone on 10 occasions and apologized for America. And this is why people are so angry and frustrated. You can't help but to travel this country and talk to people and not sense the anger and the frustration. And not just against Barack Obama, against Washington, against both political parties, against a political class that has never been more out of touch than it is right now. This is why in 2009 I did ignore the Republican establishment. The entire leadership of the Senate supported the governor of Florida, and I was just a private citizen. And they told me not to run for Senate, and I did anyways, and we won. This is why I ran when I decided to run for president. Now I ignored them again. Many of them came to me, both publicly and privately, and said, do not run. It is not your turn. You need to wait. And my answer is, wait for what? After 7 years of Barack Obama, this is no time for patience. If we get this election wrong, there may be no turning around for America. And that's why I chose to get into this race. Because this country needs a president, number one, that understands what's happening in our country. That senses and believes what people are feeling is real and valid. This frustration, this feeling of being left behind, and I do. Many of the challenges people in America are facing, I have faced in my own life. I can't wait till I'm our nominee and there's a general election. I want to see how Hillary Clinton lectures me on people living paycheck to paycheck. Since I happen to have grown up paycheck to paycheck, I have lived paycheck to paycheck. I want to know how she's going to lecture me on student loans, since I happen to have had one. Not so long ago, in fact. I want to know how she's going to lecture me on how hard it is to raise a family in the 21st century, since my wife Jeanette and I are raising four children right now in the 21st century. And I know firsthand how hard it has become, and how hard we must work to ensure that our children grow up with the values we teach in our home, not the values that the media and the movies and the music is trying to ram down our throat every single day. We need a president that understands how people feel in this country, and I do because I've lived it, and people who I love have lived it. But being angry and frustrated about the direction of our country, while important because it motivates us to take action, that alone will not be enough. We also have to have a president that knows what to do about it, and I do. And when I'm president, I will do it. It'll actually begin my very first moments in office. I'm going to put my left hand on the Bible and my right hand in the air, and I am going to swear to protect, defend, and uphold the Constitution of the United States. And unlike this current president, I will actually mean it. And what that means is that when I meet with my Attorney General, it won't be like his meeting yesterday where they were meeting to plot how to undermine the Second Amendment in the Constitution. My Attorney General will be someone that defends the constitutional rights of all Americans, especially our Second Amendment rights and our rights to religious liberty. That's why when I appoint judges, it won't be people looking to creatively interpret the Constitution to get around it, or to undermine it, or to find loopholes in it. The people I will appoint to the federal bench will be people that will apply the Constitution as originally written, and its original intent. Then I'm going to go to the Oval Office on that first day, and I am going to repeal every single one of Barack Obama's unconstitutional executive orders. So the executive order he issued today that undermines the Second Amendment, on my first day, it's gone. All of these overreaches by the EPA that are hurting American businesses, American farmers, American employees and employers, on my first day in office, they're gone. Any effort going on in the federal government to impose Common Core in our schools, on my first day in office, they're gone. On my first day in office, we will end the practice of taxpayer funding of abortions overseas. On my first day in office, that will end. And on my first day in office, as President of the United States, I will revoke Barack Obama's deal with the Ayatollah of Iran. And we will show the world that we are firmly on Israel's side. There are some systemic issues in Washington that need to be addressed, and it will never happen in Congress. We need term limits on judges, we need term limits on members of Congress, and we need a balanced budget amendment, and the Congress will never pass any of those things. The good news is that the framers of our Constitution were geniuses, literally, and they all happened to live at the same place at the same time. And they left us an extraordinary document, the Constitution. And they provided us a mechanism where the people could take control of their government if the government got out of control. And so in Article 5 of the Constitution, there is a provision that allows the states, the people acting through the states, to call a limited constitutional convention. Not to open it up to undermine the First Amendment or the Second Amendment, but to do very detailed things. And that's what's happening. Citizens all across this country have taken it upon themselves to get their legislatures to call for a constitutional convention of the states. Not an open-ended one, a very narrowly defined one, primarily to limit the size and scope of the federal government by having a balanced budget amendment, term limits of Congress, and term limits on the Supreme Court and other in the federal judiciary. The president doesn't have to sign it. Congress doesn't have to pass it. The people are going to do it. And when I'm president of the United States, I am going to lend the weight and the power and the voice of the White House behind that effort to support our citizens in putting these things into our Constitution that you will never get from your elected officials. When I'm president, we're going to re-embrace free enterprise. We are going to make America the easiest and the best place in the world to create jobs. And not just any jobs, but the best paying jobs of the new economy. Today, we are not that anymore like we once were, because we have the most complicated and expensive tax code in the developed world. When I'm president, tax reform will be a priority. And we will no longer be losing jobs or businesses because of the federal government and its tax code. We are going to bring regulations under control. We are going to slash them, and we are going to cap them with a hard cap budget that limits how much federal regulations can cost our economy. We're going to deal with the national debt, not just through a balanced budget amendment, but by saving Social Security and Medicare in a way that doesn't harm anyone who's on it now or who is about to retire, but makes reforms to that program for future generations like me and my children, people that are 30 years away from retirement. And we're going to fully utilize our natural resources and our energy resources. I want America to lead the world in everything. Let's lead the world in wind. Let's lead the world in solar. Let's lead the world in biofuels. Let's lead the world in renewables. Let's be the most energy efficient country on this planet. But it would be reckless if we did not also fully utilize the oil and the natural gas that God has blessed this nation with. And when I'm president, we will. And it will help bring manufacturing back to America in the process. Everybody running for president is against Obamacare, as a Republican anyway. I'm the only one running for president that's ever done anything meaningful about it. In 2009, the big insurance companies cut a deal with Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, and Barack Obama. And the deal was they would support Obamacare if they created a taxpayer-funded bailout fund, so that if they lost money in Obamacare, you, the taxpayers, would bail out the insurance companies. Well, in 2014, we wiped out that bailout fund. We saved the taxpayers $2 billion. Some people are saying that because the bailout fund is gone, Obamacare may collapse. Well, I certainly hope so. But whether it does or doesn't, when I am President of the United States, Obamacare is coming to an end. We will repeal it, and we will replace it, and we will put you in charge of your own health care decisions, not the government. Another issue that gets talked a lot about is immigration. I say this to you with full confidence. There is no one running for president, now or in the recent past, who understands this issue personally better than I do. My father was an immigrant. My mother was an immigrant. My grandparents were immigrants. My wife's entire family are immigrants. I grew up in a community of immigrants, and I still live in a community made up primarily and a majority of immigrants, or first generation. I know every aspect of this issue. I know the good, I know the bad, and I know the ugly. And I know three things about it today. Number one, this is a different issue than we had just a couple of years ago. The debate about immigration used to be about what do you do with someone who's in this country illegally but is here to work hard and make a better future for the family, and that's still happening. But today, first and foremost, this is an issue about national security, because we now have radical jihadist groups that are openly and, quite frankly, in a very sophisticated way, utilizing our immigration problems to try to get people into the United States. They're utilizing our legal immigration system. They're trying to figure out how to get people here on visas as doctors, on visas as students, on visas as business owners. They also understand that our southern border is insecure, and they're trying to figure out ways to sneak people across that border again. This is not speculation. This is fact. First and foremost, this immigration issue is now about national security, which is why when I'm president, our immigration policies will be governed by a very simple standard. If we do not know 100% for sure who you are, and we do not know 100% for sure why you are coming, you will not be allowed to enter the United States. On the other issues on immigration, we're not going to have amnesty when I'm president. There will be no amnesty. Sanctuary cities are going to lose their federal funding. Criminal aliens are going to be immediately deported. The other thing I can tell you as the son and grandson of immigrants is that enforcing our immigration laws is not anti-immigrant. It is what sovereign countries do, and we will when I am president. And what we need to do is not, it's difficult to do, but it's not difficult to understand what it takes. Here's what it takes. It takes the completion of 700 miles of fencing and/or walls and real barriers across the southern border. It takes an additional 15,000 to 20,000 new Border Patrol agents, trained and deployed. It takes at least $3.5 to $4.5 billion of new technologies, sensors and cameras on key sectors of the border to see people crossing before they do. It takes a mandatory e-verify system so that people stop coming because there's jobs available for those who enter illegally. It takes a biometric entry-exit tracking system to prevent visa overstays, because that's almost half the problem, is people that enter legally and overstay visas. If you do these things, we will bring illegal immigration under control. But they've been talking about it for 30 years. Some of it was required in law and ignored. When I'm president, we will finally do it. The most important thing the federal government does is keep us safe. And that's why that must be the primary focus of immigration from now on. But that is also why this election is a national security election. The most important title a president has is commander-in-chief. The most important obligation they have is keeping our nation and our people safe. Now, it is easy to talk tough on immigration. It's easy to go around saying you're going to kill all the terrorists, you're going to carpet bomb them, you're going to make the sands in the Middle East glow in the dark. It's easy to say that, but talk is cheap. You can't bomb the terrorists if you don't have the intelligence to know where they're hiding. And you can't carpet bomb them if you don't have the bombs or airplanes to do it. And I hope everyone understands where we are today when it comes to national defense. We are undergoing such dramatic budget cuts against our military that we are soon going to have the smallest army we have had since the Second World War. We are soon going to have the smallest and oldest Navy that we have had in 100 years. And we will soon have the smallest and oldest Air Force in our entire history. The world is too dangerous for that. And so my number one priority as president when it comes to national security is we will rebuild the U.S. military. Because the world is a safer and a better place when America is the strongest military power in the world. The second thing we're going to do when I'm president is we're going to rebuild our intelligence programs. We can have intelligence programs that work without violating the civil liberties of Americans. But we live in a dangerous world where people who are plotting against us are using sophisticated methods of communication. They don't use carrier pigeons. They use encrypted communication. And they are hiding information from us and carrying out plots both within the United States and abroad against us. We need to know who they are and where they are before they strike. And when I'm president, I won't just rebuild our intelligence capabilities, we will expand them. The third thing is we are going to have a real war on terror when I'm president. Not a rhetorical war on it, a real war. Which means the best intelligence services in the world are going to find where the terrorists are organizing. The most capable military in the world is going to destroy them. And if we capture them alive, they are going to get a one-way ticket to Guantanamo Bay, where we are going to find out everything they know about these plots, past, present, or future. One more point on national security. National security is also about taking care of our veterans, about taking care of those who took care of us. And we are failing in that endeavor as well. We have record numbers of homelessness among our veterans, mental illness that goes undiagnosed and untreated, difficulties reintegrating back into society and into the workforce, and the VA system that's failing them. If you don't take care of the people that took care of you, you have violated one of the most important promises we make to our men and women in uniform. And when I'm president, we will. The skills you learned in the military, we are going to give you credit for them in either college credit or allow you to get licensing. It's very simple, guys. If you are qualified to haul explosives on a dirt road in Afghanistan, I believe you are qualified to haul eggs on the interstate highway system of the United States. If you've learned to be a welder or a machinist or a plumber or a pipe fitter, important jobs in the military, why would we not immediately license you to do that in civilian life as well? When I'm president, we will work hard to do that. But we're also going to have a VA system that works. We're going to have a VA system that's accountable. There are good people working at the VA. And it isn't fair to them that there are people working at the VA that are not doing a good job. When I'm president, they will be held accountable. People that aren't working will be fired. And the second thing is that the VA benefits are not going to belong to the government. They're going to belong to our veterans. Just like the GI Bill, you will be able to take your VA benefits to any hospital, any doctor, any clinic, any practitioner who's prepared to see you right away. And if you're happy at the VA, you can keep going there, but otherwise you'll be able to take that benefit anywhere you want, so you can be treated immediately. In a moment, we're going to get to your questions. We have two young people here. If you hold up your hands, this young lady and this young man with microphones, and they're going to take your questions, and I'm going to answer them. And I just want to close by saying this. After 7 years of Barack Obama, America is a great nation in decline. It doesn't have to be this way. We are not a weak people. We are not a weak nation. We just have a weak president. And in this election, we're going to change it. This is why we cannot afford for Hillary Clinton to win. America cannot afford 4 more years like the last 7. By the way, this is why she lies about my record and has spent her and her associated groups so much time attacking me. She doesn't want to run against me. They've told people they don't want to run against me, but I can't wait to run against her. This is why we can't just elect any Republican. We can't just elect any Republican. This election is not just a choice between 2 political parties. At its core, this election is a generational choice. It is a referendum on our identity as a nation and as a people. And the choice before us is this. Are you prepared to do what it takes to make America as great as it's ever been? Or are you prepared to be the first generation that leaves their kids worse off than themselves? Those are the only 2 choices before us. And the path we are on right now will leave us as the first Americans ever that leave their children worse off than themselves. As I entered this campaign, I did so with full acknowledgement that America doesn't owe me anything. I am not entitled to this position. I am not entitled to be a senator. I'm not entitled to be president. It's something that needs to be earned. But I can tell you that while America owes me nothing, I have a debt to America I will never fully repay. This isn't just the country I was born in. This is the nation that literally changed the history of my family. This is the country where a couple from Cuba in 1956, with no education, limited education, no money, and no command of the English language at the time, were able to come here and build a new life. And they were never rich or famous, but they owned a home in a good neighborhood. They retired with dignity. And they were able to leave all 4 of their children better off than themselves. And they achieved all of that working as a bartender and as a maid at a hotel. This is an extraordinary country. The only place on earth where their story and mine would be possible. And why is it so special? Was it an accident? No. Did it happen on its own? No. America is a great country because for over 200 years, each generation before us did what they needed to do. For over 200 years, each generation confronted their challenges and embraced their opportunities. And because they did, for over 200 years, we've been an exceptional country. Now the time has come for this generation to do its part. And if I'm elected President of the United States, or I should say when you help elect me President of the United States, we will. We will embrace everything that makes America special. We will confront our challenges and embrace our opportunities. And in doing so, we're not just going to save the American dream. We are going to expand it to reach more people and change more lives than ever before. And when the history of our time is written, it will say that this generation was the authors of the greatest chapter in the amazing story of America. And the 21st century wasn't just as good as the 20th century, it was better. It was a new American century. I hope that I can earn your support. I can't wait to answer your questions. Thank you.